Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, Brunning, Bruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Monday, or is Tuesday. The Super Bowl is over. That means the 2023 NFL season is officially over. The good news is, after 2 weeks of auditioning to be part of the Dung Kings and not quite making it for Super Bowl Sunday, Dennis is back.
I'm trying to remember how this stuff works. Spent 2 weeks out in the French Polynesian Islands, sailing around, trying to avoid tropical cyclones, which is what they call hurricanes in the South Pacific. We didn't get hit. We had some waves. It was rough enough. We couldn't port at as many. We were supposed to see 6 islands. We saw 2, and one of those 2 wasn't one of the original 6 we were supposed to see. Lots of sailing time. I told my wife, I said, the least they could have done, if we were going to spend 7 of our 10 days at sea, was give me the 15-foot waves. But we only hit about 6-foot waves. Our captain did a great job of avoiding the brunt of the storm. It was hot and it was sunny most of the time. It rained. But what I did see in French Polynesia, it's very beautiful.
Well, I'm glad you survived. My Dung Kings reference, just kind of a quick nod to what I felt was by far the best Super Bowl commercial, which is that Dunkin' Donuts, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Tom Brady, Jennifer Lopez. That was hilarious. I've watched it a few times on stream since, and it never stops being funny.
I got to be honest, I don't remember a single commercial.
Well, you were probably still trying to adjust quite a bit to timing and yeah.
And while I'm somebody who doesn't hate Usher, I don't really remember any of the songs that he sang either. Though I did recognize her when she came out. I got to be honest, I thought Jermaine Dupri was CeeLo Green at first. So I just enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. I was getting caught up on laundry, and halftime was when I went and folded and swapped laundry. But I thought the game was pretty good.
Yeah, and we will touch on the game, a couple of news notes, and then Dennis and I are going to go through a kind of 2-round rookie superflex mock draft, making some picks of where we're sitting right now. I know it's very early. Many people probably still trying to dive in. We're still trying to make sure we
That's
understand
what we're here for.
Who all is
off
available.
the dock.
Well, there's some discrepancies I've seen in different lists about who's eligible for the draft, and I think that's because people are still trying to figure out if some of them are coming in or staying out. Has the deadline already expired?
Yeah, the deadline passed a couple weeks ago.
Okay, good. Well, in terms of news, we should be talking about the NFL Playoff Challenge winners, but you know what? I saw that on the sheet when I just looked and remembered that I forgot to do the math today, so I will have that on Friday. But it's definitely going to come down to a couple of different players. As we noted last week, Purdy versus Christian McCaffrey. I think that actually ended up fairly even. It probably hurts you that Brock Purdy only threw one of those touchdowns and Juwan Jennings threw the other one.
Yeah, that wasn't great, Bob. And what McCaffrey had, 24 points or something? So
yeah.
He had 160 yards on the ground and a touchdown. No, he had 8 receptions too. Did he have a touchdown?
He did. He caught that
Okay.
touchdown
No, he
from
had 30
Jawan
points then,
Jennings.
didn't he?
Yeah, so it's probably not great, but in terms of news, there isn't a ton of news. One of the pieces that broke right after we finished up on Friday is Grubb leaving Alabama. He was the offensive coordinator for a pretty pass-heavy University of Washington squad last year. Was going to follow Kalen DeBoer to the University of Alabama, but switched courses to go back to the Washington area to coach the Seattle Seahawks. Dennis, they have some pretty interesting wide receivers there. Noah Fant, a free agent, but Lockett, Metcalf, and JSN still under contract. Could we see maybe a move at quarterback? Do you think they'll be a little bit more of a pass-heavy team?
So, who's the head coach there again?
It's Mike McDonald, who was the Ravens defensive coordinator.
Defensive coordinator, bringing in an offensive coordinator that pushed the ball around pretty much at Washington. So I like the potential, but we've often seen some of these college offensive minds don't transition well to the NFL. That's why not only did I have to go through the Ohio State hiring of Bill O'Brien, then I had to go through the Ohio State hiring of Chip Kelly.
I know. I was going to say you weren't happy about Bill O'Brien, and while you were gone, he moved to Boston College. I like to think it's because of your lack of faith in him.
Well, I'll take credit for it. Give me all that credit. I'm not 100% sure on how Kelly has struggled since he initially left college, went to the NFL, went back to college, and he's bounced around. And it's like he couldn't get out of UCLA fast enough. And I'm like, well, it should be, other than the fact it's in LA and there's just a lot of things competing.
Coming off of 3 straight winning seasons. So
I mean, it just
to me, that made no sense to me, especially as many people have talked about. If things don't break right for Ryan Day this year, he could end up getting swept out. And I don't know that Chip Kelly's the guy they choose to replace him.
He has a long-standing relationship with Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly was Ryan Day's college coach. So he came up through I think Day, a lot of what he developed, the genesis of it was him playing for Chip Kelly. So we'll see, does Day meddle? When he brought Kevin Wilson in, I think Day has transitioned really well to being that CEO type. And typically, what he asks of his coaches is, if you come here, I want you to give me 2 years. Now, Bill O'Brien gave him 3 weeks, which is fine by me. But if we have Kelly for 2 years, Brian Hartline is probably our best position coach and one of our best recruiters. He was the offensive coordinator last year. Now, Day was calling the plays, but Hartline at some point is going to want more. So are they just looking at, hey, come and work with Chip Kelly for a couple of years. Kelly will rehab his image, take over another program, maybe rehab it and get back to the NFL. And then Hartline can actually call plays. Because I think if Kelly ends up sticking around, or even if he leaves and Day doesn't give Hartline the play calling duties, I feel like Hartline may look for greener pastures.
The other piece of NFL news, the Steelers released Mitch Trubisky. They hurt. Some people have tried to link them to Justin Fields, but I don't know if you saw the rumor that they are interested in Ryan Tannehill, who obviously worked with Arthur Smith in Tennessee. Either way, the fact that there have been many different quarterbacks rumored to going to the Steelers kind of has to make you feel like it's not a good sign for Kenny Pickett, right?
I concur. I think that they basically they gave Pickett a year and a half and basically said, yeah, we need more out of the position than you can give.
But if
Mason
they
Rudolph
also,
is a
so
free agent as well.
yeah, Rudolph's a free agent, so it'll be my only curiosity with that is they seem to be saying Matt Canada wasn't the guy. You didn't really get very many games with Kenny Pickett with anyone else, and now you've brought in finally a new offensive coordinator. I don't know if they took Tannehill, I could see it being like some kind of a competition or like a veteran backup. If they make a move for Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, that feels like you're making a decision that you're going a different way
Yeah.
with a
And
starter.
I think Tannehill is washed. I think he's at that stage of his career. Great locker room guy, maybe can teach a lot of stuff. And maybe that's why they're interested is he can teach Arthur Smith's hand the ball to the big back offense.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it maybe makes a little bit of sense. But Pickett, I don't think he has inspired a ton of confidence as a game changer. I mean, right now, we're looking for Pickett to take a step, but what he didn't play well early, handcuffed by his OC, got injured, and then Mason Rudolph just came in and was, fuck it, I don't care. What are they going to do? Bench me? I didn't play for a year and a half, you know? So I'm curious to see if Rudolph gets to go somewhere to compete for a job.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like he's probably a guy that's earned like a veteran backup slot. I think this season, if nothing else, showed you really have to have two quarterbacks that you're comfortable playing. We saw a lot of teams, even like think about Cleveland, decide to roll the dice. They're like, we got Watson. We'll just get a couple developmental guys. And then when Watson was unavailable, they're like, this is not going to work. Woody Johnson's comments, we need a backup quarterback. We didn't have one last year. Even when you have kind of that star quarterback, even Joe Burrow ended up being gone. You really needed Jake Browning. We saw Anthony Richardson get knocked out and really helped them to have Gardner Minshew, a guy that could keep them in the playoff race. A lot of these guys kept them in the playoff race or got teams into the playoffs, without a marquee starter. So I think there's going to be a big move to try to make sure that it's not about having one. You have to have the one, but you need the two.
And another one.
Yeah.
Mac Jones is going to be available, I think.
The Patriots one is a curious one because supposedly the tensions over not believing in Mac Jones played a part in them wanting to get rid of Bill. And they haven't really made any comments. And you weren't here when they put together their offensive staff, which was Alex Van Pelt and Ben McAdoo. I don't know. Now there's big talk that they're one of the teams that's aggressively trying to move the number 3 overall pick, which leads you to believe that they're not trying to go take a franchise quarterback up high.
Yeah, to me that feels crazy.
Honestly, even if you don't want a quarterback, why wouldn't you just stay there and get like Marvin Harrison or an actual weapon? Because you still have nothing.
I've been seeing more and more Jaden Daniels momentum. And so potentially Drake May could be there at 3. I still feel like when push comes to shove, it's going to go Williams, May, and then Jaden Daniels will be there. But I think we've seen these greatly athletically gifted quarterbacks come in and play well and give you a little something. A lot of the NFL offenses now are being really geared towards those guys with that athletic ability. And Jaden Daniels brings that, and he was a really good passer last year. So he took a big step in the passing game. Can he take another one going to the NFL? That I think is something we got to wait and see. But I feel like still it's going to go 1, 2, 3 for quarterbacks.
Yeah, we'll see. That hasn't always panned out. Well, let's talk about the Super Bowl, which wrapped up the season. Kansas City Chiefs getting the 25-22 victory in overtime, gives them their 3rd Super Bowl title in the last 5 years. Let's start with the 49ers. A good season. They were able to get to the Super Bowl. They were pretty much the dominant team in the NFC during the season. Didn't quite have enough to get a win there. I felt like offensive line was a strength for them a lot of the regular season, and some of the blocking and some of the play calling left me a little befuddled at times in the Super Bowl. But what do you think they really need to focus on? They got McCaffrey, they got Ayuk, they got Samuel. They can keep all those guys are currently under contract. What do you think they need to focus on this offseason?
So they're a very well-rounded team. And Brock Purdy he's not exceptional, but he makes quick decisions and he gets the ball out. And when pressed, he can run. He tested very well for speed at the combine. I think he had a 4.56 40. So he runs well, but he doesn't look to run. I think he did get rattled. Kansas City put some pressure on him. Steve Spagnuolo, his defense played very well. And so you always want to look to build up your offensive line. I know you've got Trent Williams out there on the left side. They've drafted a couple guys. You still need to keep replenishing that. If health is on their side, if Debo can stay healthy all season, I think Brandon Ayuk took a giant step this year. I think Ayuk is the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco. Kittle for fantasy is going to forever be frustrating. He could give you 30 points or he could give you 3 points. You just don't know what it's going to be. And then there's McCaffrey, who is, even in a game that felt like San Francisco had some struggles, the dude put up 30 points. He put up 24 points in the passing game. It was just wild to watch that production. I hope they re-sign Chase Young. I think he's a free agent, but that Chase Young, Nick Bosa defensive line, I feel terrible for Dre Greenlaw. He looks like he blew his Achilles just jogging onto the field for the next set.
He did blow his Achilles.
And, that's tough, but they're going to probably need to bolster their defense, the back end. I think they're really strong on the defensive line, and continue to rebuild the offensive line. And just we've seen they tend to go get players that fit their system that they can develop. So I think they're in as good a spot as anybody to make another run next year. I think next year it just comes down to, can they stay healthy? And I like having Sam Darnold as a backup. He's a quality backup.
He is a free agent. So whether they bring him back or they go get somebody, I'm with you, backup quarterback, especially with San Francisco, feels like a real important. But they have good, running back depth. They still have Elijah Mitchell, who as a rookie was incredible, and he's kind of just back there in case they need him. I loved what we've seen from Jawan Jennings. He arguably had the best game of anyone.
Somebody's
not named
McCaffrey. A bunch of money this offseason to fail as their wide receiver too.
I don't think he's a free agent.
I thought I saw he was a free agent.
I didn't see him on the list, but
I mean, he's a perfect wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. He's got good size. He does the right things, runs good routes.
He's a restricted free agent, so good luck. I mean, somebody's probably. If I'm San Francisco, I put a first round tender on him.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to make somebody pay up. But there is, I guess, an outside shot. But that's why he wasn't on my list of UFAs. Let's talk about the Chiefs. The second consecutive year, I thought their receiving core was not great last year, but they made it work. And this year seemed like it was even worse. They managed to find, I think, something good with Rashee Rice. Justin Watson stepped up at times, MVS. It seems like they are completely out on Tony. He was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. I kind of giving up on Sky Moore at this point in time, unless you dramatically feel different. We know Kelsey said he's coming back. They still have Patrick Mahomes. They still have Andy Reid. They had some good pieces on defense, but what do you think about the Chiefs? They seem to have a decent back in Pacheco. I believe CEH, his contract will be up,
I think so.
and McKinnon's contract is up, so you can be looking to pull in pieces. Do they need to get a marquee receiver?
I think Rashee Rice is going to be that guy. A little inconsistent this year, but overall, he came on and played really, really well. And I think as long as Travis Kelce is there, sorry, Mark Andrews was stuck in the front of my brain. As long as Travis Kelce is there, he's going to be the number one receiver. But we saw Isaiah Pacheco come on in the passing game. He runs hard. I think they need depth at the running back position. I know they drafted late last year or signed as an unrestricted free agent a guy named Deneric Prince, who has a little bit of potential. He's got good size, real good in pass protection. But the rest of their receiving core, after Kelce, their tight ends, and after Rice, their wide receivers, are all just guys. And unfortunately, it feels like they are going to be stuck with that type of wide receiver core unless the salary cap goes astronomically up. I mean, you can't pay a guy $500 million. And
I almost wonder if the route for Kansas City wouldn't be to take another shot on a receiver in the draft, because it's a very good wide receiver class, supposedly, in this draft, and piece it together and then take a shot on a guy like maybe Austin Eckler in your backfield, because you don't really need, you have a running back who's a young guy who is a first and second down pounder. Eckler is a pretty dynamic weapon who can run the ball, but also can catch the ball. I wonder if that would fit what they're kind of doing. You have Rice, you have Kelce. To me, I could see that being the kind of thing, because the free agent class for running backs is really good, even though the draft class for running backs is not incredible.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be supplemented with the free agents. I was looking, I saw a tweet, and I can't find it, but it listed like the last 10 or 12 starting running backs. And it wasn't, it was for the winning teams. Can't find it.
Yeah, so I mean, Kansas City the last 2 years would have been Pacheco.
Yeah, but it was like Damian Williams, Cam Akers,
that would have been the
Garrett
first
Blunt
time.
a couple times.
When the Tampa Bay won, it would have been Fournette.
Yep.
I can't. The Rams, you're right, would have been Akers.
Yep. So it was really, what it said is, you don't have to pay more crapping on the running backs. You don't have to pay a running back to win the Super Bowl.
Which is probably true. You don't have to. But if San Francisco would have won, you would have been talking about the team that had by far and away the best and probably most expensive running back in the league doing it. So be interesting to see. Well, we briefly touched on some of the rookie class, but what I'm going to do is pop this window in here, and I thought what you and I might do is go through basically a top 24 kind of picks. If you are looking to mock draft on Sleeper right now, I will tell you it's very tough unless you find 12 or 11 like-minded friends. They do not have ADP set in there. The rosters looking at the rookies are very hard. They're basically by position, by alphabet. It is not, we're not quite to rookie mock drafting season the way you might be hoping, but it makes sense. We're only 2 days removed from the Super Bowl. Combine picks up later this month, February 27th. So I'd expect things to start picking up. But looking
what we're saying is, go start mock drafting and let's get that ADP fixed.
Yeah, that would help. I just wanted to see what it was like mock drafting with the computer and letting it auto pick, and according to them, Jermaine Burton would be the first auto pick taken because they're literally going in alphabetical order. Maybe that's a fine pick. You never know. But Dennis, if you had the 101 in a super flex as of today, just what we know without combines, just fresh off a college season, no draft, who would you be taking?
I am taking Caleb Williams at the 101. He played on a terrible team last year. I think he has shown us that he has the tools to be the guy for an NFL team. And as much as I want Justin Fields to, keep growing where he's at, the reality of the situation is that the Bears coaches are buying themselves extra time. Matt Eberflus is buying time by firing his offensive coordinator, by now bringing in a new rookie quarterback, in hopes of saying, give me more time to develop my team. So Caleb Williams is a plus passer, great athlete, and has shown us over the past 3 seasons in college football that he's the top dog in this draft.
Here's where it kind of starts getting interesting. There are some people that actually have Marvin Harrison, a wide receiver, ranked above any of the quarterbacks in Superflex rankings as of now. But typically, if you're the top of the Superflex draft, you probably are hurting for certain at quarterback. We have mentioned this is not a great running back draft. So if you are sitting at 2, are you thinking Marvin Harrison? Are you going for a Drake May?
I think as much as I love Marvin Harrison, I think it's hard to justify taking him over one of these other 2 quarterbacks, those being Drake May and Jaden Daniels, in the Superflex league. You need 2 really good quarterbacks in the Superflex league. Jaden Daniels is making a push. I think we're seeing a little bit of it with Drake May, like we are with Caleb Williams, is the prospect fatigue. But Drake May has all of the physical tools. He's 6'4". What is he? Where'd he go? 6'4", 6'5", 220. He's got a big arm. He's mobile. He gives you everything you want out of an NFL quarterback. Now let's see, will he be able to manifest it in the NFL? Will he go to a good situation?
So I'm going to say right now, like if I had the 3, I wouldn't let Harrison go beyond that unless we just find out some absolutely horrendous things. But right now, that seems like a pretty top prospect. And I think your point is well taken, especially in Superflex. It seems like it's possible we're going to have Williams, May, Daniels go 1, 2, 3 in drafts. So I feel pretty good right about there. Let's move on. If you were sitting right now at pick,
let me ask you this: what has to happen in the run up to the draft for you to move Jaden Daniels ahead of Marvin Harrison?
I mean, unless I was just decimated at quarterback, nothing would. I actually would consider taking Marvin Harrison up at the top. It really depends on. I don't believe, honestly, I get the theory, but Matt and I talked about this a little bit on Friday, and we'll get to talk about this. We're going to start looking back at a couple of the recent draft classes for the purposes of Dynasty and looking at positions, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends from 21, 22, 23. The last 3 years, we've had a lot of, 22, most people thought was kind of a garbage quarterback draft. It's probably been more garbage than we realized. But look at 21, where you had all these can't miss prospects, but they landed in horrendous situations. And now, after 2 years, there's probably only one bankable one. I don't want to jump too far ahead because we'll look at that. And that's my concern. You're talking about the Bears, who I don't know what their doing offensively, or if they even have a great offensive philosophy. They went and picked up Shane Waldron, who was the offensive coordinator from Seattle. Is that really a big step up over where they were with Luke Getsy? Are they going to invest in the weapons? Washington tried to get a whole bunch of different people, ends up landing with Kingsbury. Is that good? Maybe. I didn't love his offenses in Arizona. And also, if we were looking at personnel, if he wants to run that real wide open system, is that good for a rookie quarterback? Do they actually have the personnel for that right now? We have not seen Jahan Dotson take a big step forward. I like Terry McLaurin. We don't know what they're doing at tight end. I don't know what they're doing. And is that great for either May or Jaden Daniels? And then you have the Patriots potentially at 3. I think the greatest gift they could do to dynasty drafters right now would be not taking one of these rookie quarterbacks, because their probably best pass catcher the last few years, Hunter Henry, is a free agent. Gesicki's a free agent. Who knows what they're doing at wide receiver? If I'm looking at that, so did we drop, these guys in? Are we going to get that lightning in a bottle production? One of those guys will probably end up hitting by law of averages, but it feels like a rookie wide receiver that maybe goes into the right system has a much better chance of popping for me early, and they have a decently long career as well. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see what teams end up. If one of those quarterbacks ended up going to Atlanta per se, maybe I'd be a little higher on that. Or do you get a team that's got a better infrastructure that's able to trade up and get into them, and they can go someplace that's a little more appealing? But right now, there's a reason those teams are picking at the top of the order, and it doesn't make me feel that great, especially with the track record, even going back as far as 2018, when we had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. You've done pretty well with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who people were probably the lowest on. You never got anything if you banked on Rosen. Baker's been up and down. He was really great this last year, but you probably didn't still have him. And Darnold, has maybe found his calling as a veteran backup. But he was the number 3 overall pick, and people were looking at that. I just don't know that these rookie quarterbacks have been solid gold for the NFL or for fantasy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch.
So, it makes sense that you're taking shots, but it's the same argument I'd almost make when we talked about Bijan last year. Were you worried about his situation as coordinator? Yeah, they probably didn't maximize him, but I still felt a lot better about him than some of the, if you took Bryce Young and the next guy took Bijan Robinson, who's feeling better about that a year later?
The Bijan Robinson guy, probably.
So we get to 5. There's probably where it starts to get interesting. There are people that are high on JJ McCarthy and Bo Nix. Mentioned, I don't know how far we're going to have to get down before you get excited about a running back. Brock Bowers potentially in the right situation, even though he's a tight end. People got really hot for Kyle Pitts. That didn't pan out. If you were picking at 5 right now today, who are you feeling best about?
So for, I don't know, what's it been, 9 months? Pick 4 has been Brock Bowers. And then Jaden Daniels has pushed his way up there. Jaden Daniels had a college career more than 4 touchdowns to interception ratio to 1 interception. But Daniel's 6'3", 185 pounds. He needs to eat a little bit. But at 5 now, I'm sitting here, and I love Brock Bowers' talent. But the guy that has come on for me has been Malik Neighbors. And so I have, like, if I have several drafts and I'm picking at 4 and 5, I'm probably going to have a 60-40, 70-30, 65-35 split leaning towards Neighbors. Yeah, I'll grab some Brock Bowers. I think Bowers has the potential to be a mismatch. He's going to have to go somewhere. He's a willing blocker, but he's 6'3" and 240 pounds. I love what he can provide to an offense, but I'm going to go Malik Neighbors at 5. I just think, 1,569 yards, 17.6 yards per catch, 14 touchdowns. He had a phenomenal year last year. And, he can bitch all he wants about Marvin Harrison winning the Biletnikoff. I think Harrison earned it, but if they had given it to Neighbors, it's not like I'd be sitting here going, yeah, that was bogus. It was good.
Yeah, and I think that kind of next group, as I've been looking at it, because I started doing, we have our rookie Superflex rankings that we've been working on for Campus Skin. And that next group right now, Neighbors is in consideration. I think Brock Bowers, who you mentioned, but I put up Rome. O'Dunes. I'm not great at it. Some people even have him as kind of the number one receiver prospect, and there's time to see how things shake out. But right now, I feel like kind of those three receivers and that tight end, the pass catchers seem like a really strong group when you're following that top group of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think you can put Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze in the same tier, but I think generally this is how they're going to stack out in that tier. It's going to be Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze. Is there an opportunity for somebody to come on? If Brian Thomas has a phenomenal run up to the draft, he could push his way up and be a high draft pick. Troy Franklin, I think, he has maybe late first round potential in the NFL draft. Xavier Worthy, Keon Coleman. I saw an article or some tweets. I forget which it was, but basically attaching the highest bust potential to Keon Coleman. It seemed like he was great at making these phenomenal catches, but didn't do a lot of the other stuff you need. We'll see how it translates to the NFL. But yeah, I would be going to Odunze here.
So let's talk about this kind of back half of the first round. What are some guys then that you have in this range? Where do you start looking at running backs? It seems like right now at this point in time, I'm trying to look who it was, that Jonathan Brooks has been kind of the top running back for a lot of people. But I have seen not a lot have him super high up, even among prospects, not really even grading out as a first round grade. What would you do if you were kind of in this range? Who are like 4 or 5 guys you're looking at right now?
So Travion Henderson was the RB1 in this class, and he went back to Ohio State. And so that left a lot of people saying, well, it's got to be Braylon Allen. Allen had 2 great years to start his career, and then Wisconsin changed coaches and went to a different philosophy. And last year, Allen played hard. He just didn't. He wasn't a great fit for that offense. I think Braylon Allen is kind of the next coming of Derrick Henry, and I don't think we should write off his pass catching ability. I think we did that with Jonathan Taylor. And sometimes just because you don't use a guy in a role doesn't mean he can't do it. So I'm okay waiting to see how Allen performs in the like the gauntlet drill and the pass catching drills. I think now you're starting to look in Superflex, you're starting to eye JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. Those are guys I think in the back half of the first you might start to consider in a Superflex league. Wide receiver wise, it's Brian Thomas, Troy Franklin. I end up when I look at it, I don't know that I'm ready to go quarterback yet. I think I would go Brian Thomas at 7 or 8 over the quarterbacks. To me, he's got good size. He's shown, he played with Jaden Daniels. He held up well. He held his own playing across from Malik Neighbors. And so I think we've seen guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase come out of the same school and both be good NFL prospects. So I'm not going to get overly worried about, oh, well, he was only good because he had Malik Neighbors across from him. I think Thomas held his own last year at LSU. So I would actually go Thomas at 8.
If it lets me.
So are you like, if this is where I'm picking 8, 9, 10, it's quarterback for me?
So I don't know. That's a question I had for you. I was kind of putting them up in a little bit of tier areas right now because it's a little bit. How many quarterbacks do you think go in the first round of Superflex this year?
I wouldn't be surprised to see 5 go. I do think that depending on landing spot and testing, that we could be looking at Jonathan Brooks and Braylon Allen and even Trey Benson maybe sneaking into the back end of the first round. Troy Franklin, it would be a candidate. So to me, it feels like I'm not sold on J.J. McCarthy. I know he had some good games, but Harbaugh hid him a lot. And when you have Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, you can hide your quarterback, especially the way Ohio State tackled him.
Well, it seems like Bo Nix has gotten some of a bump from the last couple of weeks too. And I think to me, the back end of the first round might shift around among quarterbacks and some of those receivers based on landing spots. But where would you be when you first started considering a running back?
I would be considering the running back starting at 8 or 9. I don't know that I'd be drafting them there yet because we don't know the landing spots and the path to touches. The hard thing is we have to, like Braylon Allen, for instance, we have to stop convincing ourselves just because someone can handle 30 carries a game that they have a path to 30 carries a game. That's just not how the NFL works anymore. And the guys we see doing it are Christian McCaffrey, who, he gets, 20, 25 touches, and half of them are targets. So I would be, depending on what my team looks like, once I get back around 9, 10, 11, I'm going to start to take a look at and weigh best player available versus team needs. Do I need a quarterback? Do Nix and Penix and McCarthy go to teams where they have a chance to start? If one of them gets drafted by the Giants, do they move up or down in your eyes?
Well, and I feel like this is the classic Will Levis conundrum that we had in last year's draft because of where he went. He wasn't the obvious week 1 starter, but there was some potential. And so you saw some people reaching for him in the back end of the first round. Some people went for him at the beginning of the second round in Superflex drafts. I even saw him go at the end of the second round of Superflex drafts, just depending on philosophy and team makeup. I feel pretty good about the first 7 right now, but to me, the rest of where what I would take and when I would take it, I feel like that is going to transition a lot as we go through combines and scouting reports and start getting an understanding of what different NFL teams need and where they might end up going. And for me, a little bit based on my team and my team needs. I know if you went into rookie drafts at the top of rookie drafts the last few years and you needed a running back, you are in great shape. If your running back is what you need most in this draft, I think you'll be fine if you're back end of the draft or if you have an early second round pick, because I think that's probably where running backs are going to go. And I'm not sold that's going to be a great production for you anyway. I mean, we even saw that last year. Everybody still clung on to really liking Zach Charbonnet, and the opportunities he got weren't incredible. And, as we just talked about, their entire offensive philosophy might be shifting. I don't know that you're feeling great. Like if you wasted 103 to 105 on him last year, and waste is the wrong word, but if you used 103 to 105, how good do you feel right now?
I feel great, man. He's gonna come on.
Did Ken Walker die?
I don't disagree with you. To me, when I look at it, it's like, would I rather have Blake Corum at 202 and 203 or Braylon Allen at 110 or 111 or not Bucky, Jonathan Brooks at 110 or 111? It's, because my concern with Corum is that with him, what you have is a 5'8", 207 pound, 209 pound, 2-down back. That's my concern with Corum. Because they use Donovan Edwards a lot in the straight up pass game. Corum caught passes, but I don't know that he kind of showed that he could be a Christian McCaffrey type. Does he have it in him? Maybe. But I feel like in most first rounds we're going to see one of these quarterbacks drop out, whether it's Nix or Penix or McCarthy.
Penix seemed to have taken some big hits based on national championship game and him kind of dropping out of the Senior Bowl. It'll be interesting to see if he bounces back a little bit here in this pre-draft process.
So for me, I had no expectation that Penix would actually play in the Senior Bowl. I felt like he was going there to interview, to work out and show what he could do in the workouts. And part of it too was because of his personal situation. He was a 6-year player in college, a couple massive knee injuries. He has to put people at ease that he's going to be able to hold up to the NFL game. And they have to, look him in the eye and believe him when he says, you know what, I got this. I'm going to be just fine. I'm mobile enough, and I'm not going to get hit any harder or any worse if the line's doing their job than I did in college.
There's been some interesting. I've wondered lately if some of these quarterbacks beyond the top couple are going to end up landing with teams that have a really, like the Jets would be a perfect example. We fully expect Aaron Rodgers to be back and to be starting for them in 2024. He's 40 years old. Zach Wilson ain't it. I'm curious if they take, like a good prospect to stick behind him so that I'm wondering if more of these NFL teams are looking at what the Packers did with Jordan Love, and we're going to end up seeing a little bit more of that.
Yeah. Rodgers has said he doesn't expect 24 to be his last year as well, but who knows with that dude?
I mean, we're not that far removed from him saying he was 90% set on retiring when he went into an ayahuasca tent last offseason. I get him not wanting to go out the way he went out this year, where 4 plays and
Right.
you're over. But also, there's not a great energy around the Jets right now. So I don't know. We shall see. But you're right. Like a Giants, what if one of these guys went to the Giants? They still have Daniel Jones. How firm do they feel about that? I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that you have to wonder about. Will one of these young guys end up going to a team like the Raiders, who are pretty far up the first round of the draft, owing to where they finished, but they appear to be rolling into the season with not much aside from Aiden O'Connell, because it seems like they're going to release Jimmy G.
Yeah. So sitting at 2-1, here's where I think somebody gets highlight drunk and drafts Keon Coleman. I think I would probably lean towards one of the running backs, because I do think after Coleman, there is a perceived drop in the wide receiver group. But I could see somebody, watching those highlights of Coleman making those spectacular catches, and he has a good landing spot where there's a path to opportunity. I could see Coleman, being a good NFL receiver. I could see him being Laquan Treadwell.
And then you still feel like Braylon Edwards would be your number one?
Braylon Allen. Yeah, I have him.
Yeah, sorry.
I've got him at 1. I think that Jonathan Brooks has a more well-rounded game and may very well surpass him by the time the draft rolls around. He's going to have to check out with his health. I wouldn't, though, be surprised if people take Blake Corum over both of these guys. There's going to definitely be a contingent of people that like Corum. I think if I'm picking at 204, having watched these two running backs go off, though, I'm probably going Xavier Worthy.
And then maybe, but do you think Corum? So your top 3 running backs right now would be kind of Allen, Brooks, and Corum.
Yeah, and I would put him in the same tier. And I would, depending on how he measures as well, and once I dig into the Florida State tape a little more, I might even have Trey Benson in that same tier.
Yeah, I've seen people have Benson, so let's throw away. What's going to be fun is if we find rookies that aren't in here, because I think the services are still updating. So, where are you what would be that next group of receivers? I've seen some people have Jatavion Sanders, as a tight end 2, somewhere in that range. It seems like Spencer Rattler is another quarterback that's made something of a comeback. How are you feeling about like a next group?
Yeah, I don't see Rattler making it into the second round unless he has a phenomenal run up to the draft and then lands in a beautiful landing spot. I do think he's got a lot of tools to work with. So that will be interesting. But right now, I don't think I'd have him in the second round. Kind of my next group of players, it would be Tez Walker, Xavier Legette, A.D. Mitchell out of Texas. Those would be the receivers. I think that, again, I'm kind of on a kick of not drafting tight ends. So I don't know.
Who's the third one that you said? Mitchell?
Adonai Mitchell, Adonai.
There. I was making sure I pulled the right one. Like I said, it would be lovely if we had like an ADP we could go on.
There's some good players in this group, and in the second round of drafts, as we're kind of working through this process early in the off season, it ends up being more of a, let's see, we don't have 24 rookies in yet.
Um, I've seen some people that are that have kind of Marshawn Lloyd right there, about the fifth running back.
Yeah, I like Lloyd and the other guy, Bucky Irving. Irving's a smaller back. Irving is kind of a PPR back. So he's somebody that you have to hope can kind of grow into that role. Though we've seen 195, 200-pound backs play well, i.e. Kyron Williams. Somebody could come in there. I like I like Williams. To me though, he screams hashtag 2 to 3 year window. So if Irving comes in, I think if they try to give him that, volume role, I think he ends up struggling a little bit. As we sit here with this last pick, I think this is a great spot to go Sanders. Take that tight end and see what happens. There's another guy I'd consider is Malachi Corley, wide receiver out of Western Kentucky. He's kind of a 5'11". He's built a little bit like Debo. Ray Davis, the running back out of Kentucky, he showed really well down at the Senior Bowl. He was on our show a couple years ago. We had him on the Fantasy Football Roundtable, though he was called Raymond Davis back then.
I've seen some people have Ladd McConkey up in the top 24 also.
Yeah, he seems to be a riser. I think that, he's one of those.
He's a good lad.
Runs great routes, gets open. Kind of falls into that. To me, I think he falls into that Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua kind of role. I think he's a little bigger than, like the who's the accountant in Las Vegas?
The accountant?
Yeah, the wide receiver that looks like an accountant.
Oh, Hunter Renfrow.
Hunter Renfrow. I think he's a little bit bigger than Renfrow. So I don't think he's quite as big as Kupp or Puka. But he strikes, that's kind of his game, I think, that get open in short area. Maybe doesn't quite have, you'd have to take a closer look at that. So I think those are guys I think are going to be in consideration here at the end of the second round.
Yeah, so just kind of an early look as we wrap up here. We wanted to start talking about the draft because, the new NFL year is coming soon. We are just about a month away from free agency. By the end of this month, they'll start making franchise tag selections, always kind of an interesting time. The end of this month, we get the rookie combine, begins February 27th, going to March 4th. Free agency kicks off on March 12th, officially with the tampering period, and the official, March 14th with the deals can become solidified. So it should be a fun off season. You looking forward to it?
I am. I'm going to head over to the Dynasty Nerds film room and start watching game tape on these guys and kind of see who reinforces, who's who did I look at last year and watch throughout the season and thought that, I got to pay more attention to those. The draft is all right. I think it's interesting because I do think we are losing draft talent to the name, image, and likeness model. So we're going to have to start to reevaluate our, like there used to be a lot of in the analytics models, there was a lot of breakout age player, early declare would be weighted heavily. And so, but we got people going back to college. Ohio State had Emeka Buka and Travion Henderson both go back. They had a couple defensive linemen that were expected to be day one, day two picks that went back to college. It's just you're seeing it kind of all
Not
over.
as big of a financial difference, you know.
It's Ohio State. There's a pretty big financial interest.
No, I mean for these kids that used to be in college where, you know, you wanted to get to the pros so you can start making money. Some
Right.
of the guys that are in college now are making more than they will make on a rookie contract in the NFL, which is a fixed quantity.
That is true.
Well, that'll do it for us today. When we get back on Friday, we'll see if there's any news, but we're going to start looking at players and values as we go through. We're going to start looking back at the last couple of draft classes, going through, evaluating where we are, starting with the class of 2021 quarterbacks on Friday. You know, that was a big, hot class when it came out. And now as we prepare for them to enter their fourth NFL season. You know, it doesn't look quite the same way. It's time to talk about dynasty value and where we feel about these guys by position. We'll end up looking at our dynasty rankings pre-draft. Before we get up to the draft, we're going to keep mixing in some mocks, rookie mocks. We are going to do a full-blown dynasty startup mock here in a couple of weeks. As we're in March, because that's, you know, once it feels like every year, once the first wave of free agency passes, people are ready to start their new, you know, they ended the season saying they were going to shed leagues. And by the time it's March, it's like, you know, 50 leagues doesn't seem like that much to manage.
Right.
So, Dennis, if the people are still trying to, you know, relive the glory of the season, what can they do to fill these empty days?
They can go to your favorite podcast platform, RIP Google Podcast. That's going away here in a couple months, I guess. But go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that subscribe button, download, listen, or just download. You know, we'll take that. We're easy. You know, fill your ears with fantasy football goodness, even in the off season. It's dynasty time.
That's right. Well, you guys have a wonderful week, and we'll look forward to mourning over the lost draft value of Zach Wilson on Friday.
If you're into death metal, go to your Spotify and check out the song Bear by Black Powder, all one word. It's my son's band. They released their first single about 3 weeks ago.
All right. Well, you guys have a fun week and happy